Hello, 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 family. How are you today? I'm excited once again to come to you with a new topic. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Quanisha Johnson. I'm a licensed counselor and educator, and we are on our final topic under our theme for this month, which is unpacking racial identity and trauma. And so we are on week 4, our final topic in our series. And today we're going to be discussing conquering imposter syndrome. And if some of you have not heard of what imposter syndrome is, we will be talking about what it is today and how to get over that. Once again, unpacking racial identity, how we see ourselves, and the trauma that we face every single day and that we're trying to overcome. So let's get the party started. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay, family. So as I stated earlier, our topic for today is going to be unpacking racial identity and trauma with a conversation on conquering imposter syndrome. So what exactly is imposter syndrome? Let's get into it. So basically, imposter syndrome is this feeling or this experience of feeling like a fraud and feeling like, if you've ever heard of the term, someone's an imposter. I remember being a kid and watching movies, and I think about, it's interesting. I think about Scooby-Doo, and I may be dating myself for those listening and not very familiar. In the Scooby-Doo cartoon, there would be the Scooby-Doo gang would try to solve a mystery, and the person that always was the culprit at the end was someone that they were aware of, that they went to solve the mystery, and at the end, the person was an imposter. They were a fraud, and so they would say, who actually was the one who stole the artifact, and they would rip off the mask, and then they would see that it was Mr. Smith. So Mr. Smith appeared earlier as this nice guy. He was helpful. He was trying to help them solve things. And, but in the end, the gang found out that he was a fraud. He was an imposter. Who he was presenting as was not who Mr. Smith actually was. So I wanted to give a very practical example, as I always do in our conversations, of what it is. It's that idea of we believe, and I'm saying we because we have been talking about, the issues, the concerns, how to support Black people. And so when I say we, I mean us. And that experience of feeling like you're not who you say you are, and intellectually, professionally, and it can be just in general, right? And so just believing that you aren't who you are, even though you've accomplished so much, you've done great things, you're great, you're smart, right? And remember, being smart is not always connected to education. And basically, you think you're a fraud. You think that the Scooby-Doo gang is going to come rip your thing off and go, you're not really who you say you are. And you have that constant overwhelming feeling that you're not really you, and you're not really who you believe to be. It's that feeling of inadequacy, that you're not good enough, and like you don't belong. And that is a constant feeling for Black people, that we don't belong where we're supposed to belong. And of course, I'm going to give a story of moving into my home recently. And I had neighbors, very, very nice neighbors, but I had a neighbor come across the street to say hello to me, and said to me, "Oh, I would have come weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago, but I wasn't sure if it was people who worked here or you really lived here." So, and she said it with a smile. And I'm not sure if I shared the story in a prior session, but it was the belief that I would have introduced myself, but I didn't know whether or not possibly you were the help or you really lived here, that you worked there. Because when she saw in my predominantly white neighborhood a Black family, it was, and maybe she didn't see my children. I don't know, but just the idea of, because my neighborhood doesn't look like me, or I don't look like her neighborhood, it's like, well, I wasn't sure to approach because I wasn't sure if you were our neighbors or you were coming to do work. So just that idea of, and that felt uncomfortable, absolutely. Microaggression, as we'll talk about, we talked about last week and we'll talk about again. But that's feeling like you're like, I don't know why I have to be the help, or someone doing work in my home, and that there's nothing wrong with helping or housekeeping or construction. I have great people that do work for me in my home that are fantastic, and they're professional and has nothing. The work is great and has nothing to do with what color of your skin, but just the idea of that constant feeling like you just don't belong. You don't belong here, and it's just not a feeling. It's also that idea that I'm in this place and I'm going to be found out. So that analogy with Scooby-Doo earlier is that the person who was the fraud doesn't want to be discovered. So that overwhelming feeling that I feel that way, I feel like I don't belong, and others will see it too. Others know it too. So I'm now walking around with that feeling, that discomfort, that hypervigilance, because I feel as though I feel it and they all know it too. So who is impacted by imposter syndrome? So that original term, of course, coined many years ago, 1978, really was coined initially with the belief that women were less likely to internalize success. So women were the ones who felt imposter syndrome. They were the ones to feel as though they were a fraud, or they were pretending to be somebody in spite of accomplishments, in spite of where they were intellectually, professionally. But the psychologists who coined this term realized it's not, and we know this as well, it's not, this conversation today, it's not limited to women. And of course, when they were talking about women, in 1978, they weren't talking specifically about Black women, which we've talked about in the past. So it's not limited to women, but I want you to think about the impact on Black women when we think about imposter syndrome. So when when you think about the idea of just women, we have to specifically think about what we've been discussing, that the idea of intersectionality, that like, if you are a Black woman, and I'll go over again to refresh everyone on intersectionality. So intersectionality is when social identities interlap with each other, and there are systems of power that oppress people in the workplace and broader community, right? So now we have Black women dealing with two identities, right? And dealing with that challenge. So we are dealing daily with, in the workplace and everywhere else, being Black. And so we're also dealing with being a woman, which comes with other disadvantages that they should not come with in other forms of oppression. So in a lot of cases, when things are created to support, we have to look at, we are supporting Black women. We're supporting the fact of them walking with their head held high and getting the support that they need due to the oppression faced because of their Blackness. And we also have to think about the idea that they are women. So they're in this place where they're competing, and we wouldn't want this to be a competition. It should not be. People have their own skills, they have their own interests, they have abilities, and it doesn't matter that we have those things, right? But this competition where we're competing with white men, which a lot of times we can't even compete, Black men, white women, Black women. And so ultimately, it's that double identity I'm dealing with what comes along with being Black, and also what comes along with being a woman, what comes along with being a Black woman. And so we can't, so obviously, if we are dealing with those things, we can absolutely connect to the idea or understand imposter syndrome, not belonging, not feeling like you're good enough. not feeling like you have a place where you're supposed to be. And so we know that racial discrimination has a so racial discrimination, major impact on imposter syndrome. Major impact on imposter syndrome. And so when we think about imposter syndrome, we can look at what being discriminated against every day does to Black people and how they see themselves. So imposter syndrome contributes to anxiety and depression. So think about just what anxiety is, that excessive worry about an outcome, what's going to happen next, when I go to work, what are they going to think about me? Well, if I wear my hair, we talked about this, a certain way, carry myself, speak a certain way, then am I at threat of losing my job? And so just kind of that idea of like feeling as though you have to always be on the lookout, that hypervigilance, the feeling as though you can't be yourself. And so, and then not sometimes understanding what does it mean to be myself when someone's constantly telling you what yourself is doesn't fit this mold, it's not good enough. Do more of this, wear your hair like this, talk like this. And so when you are trying to walk in who you are and be proud and be confident in your abilities and your accomplishments, then you have that message that is playing in your ear. So it's bigger than us telling people, us telling Black women, us telling Black men, us telling Black people, be confident. It's bigger than that. It's that constant daily message of you don't belong here. That is not just from, so it's a message that not necessarily comes from someone walking up to you, right? I gave the example of the neighbor. She didn't say I didn't belong here. She just said that I didn't know if you worked here or if you lived here. And she didn't verbatim say you don't belong. But it's that daily message, not just from people, just in our environment. When your environment doesn't support it and doesn't look like you, when you see things in the media, things that you might want to do or be a part of, and then the picture, of what that is, there's no one that looks like you in that picture. When you read statistics about work professionals and leadership and the numbers are so low, then you feel that feeling of I'm not supposed to be there. So it's not telling someone, go in there and just be confident. Absolutely, we want to walk in the light and the truth of our confidence and who we are and that we belong. We absolutely want to do that. But this thing is bigger, right? Feeling like you're an imposter or a fraud is bigger than just lacking confidence. It plays out in our environment, media. We see these images. And so it's constantly around you, you don't belong. So of course, in the workplace, as we discussed before, school, and just many daily interactions, as we just talked about. And so we don't want to ignore that this is connected to anxiety and depression, right? That feeling down, feeling in a depressed mood, feeling unmotivated, if you don't feel as though you're able to be who you need to be, if you are questioning who you are, your worth, your purpose, that's just not a great feeling at all. And so we want to be mindful of the anxiety, like the impact on your mental health, that excessive worry about the outcome, that anxiety, that feeling like, I just, what's going to happen, right? Are people going to find me out, right? I can't be myself, that overwhelming, looming feeling. And so what it looks like in the workplace, and I think it's really important to note some things as to why there's this challenge in the workplace, the challenges in the workplace and the connection to imposter syndrome. So we know that there is a lack of representation of Black people in many careers. So it's so interesting when you talk to a lot of times when you will talk to children, let's say if you have a Black child or you, when you were younger, just remember thinking about the things that you wanted to be and that you wanted to do in relation to who you saw in those roles. And so, in many cases, thinking about being a kid and saying, I want to be a teacher because I had this teacher that was this way. I had a great seventh grade teacher. I was a teacher at a point. I always introduce myself as I'm a therapist, but I'm also a licensed educator. And I did teach, and I had a great teacher in seventh grade that I was a little difficult, but she recognized my intelligence, my abilities, and so she was a reason I thought about when teaching. And it was a Black woman, Miss Swinson was her name, in seventh grade. And so we often say kids need to see themselves. You can believe you can achieve it when you see it. So it is so important that there is representation of us in all careers. So when our children are coming up deciding that they want to be something, they saw that it's possible. They believe it's possible. There's research about that when you see it, it looks achievable. But if you look around and no one looks like you in those careers, and then you push through and you actually go to achieve that career, there's so many barriers because then you feel like, am I supposed to be here? And that happens, not to everyone, but this is the connection to imposter syndrome. When that representation is not there, when you go to work and you are the only one, when everyone in the leadership position does not look like you, and you have the skills, the talent, the ability, the experience, even though you have all of that, the degrees, and you still think, I don't think I can. And so that is the challenge in itself, and that's what it looks like in the workplace. So that prejudice, that discrimination we just talked about, is the experience of many Black people at work, being prejudged, being discriminated, right? Just being judged just by before you walk through the door, being judged because someone read your name on the paper, Quanisha Johnson. And so ultimately, it is your experience immediately when you're coming into work. Even if you don't interact, you just have that experience of the fear of the judgment, the fear of the discrimination. Black people always feeling like they need to work harder to get anywhere. I got to do more. I got to stay later. I have to, if the standard here at this organization, this company is 10, I have to be 500. And so that feeling of, and even when you get to 500, the feeling of I got to do more because it's still not enough. And so it's just, it can be overwhelming. It can be frustrating. And so we have to really, really be able to identify that these are real issues. And like I said earlier, it's just not about telling someone just go be confident. It's bigger than that. It's understanding what this looks like. Of course, in the workplace, there's lack of resources and support. And so when you don't have the proper support, with the proper support, I believe people can overcome many things. But when there's no resources and there's no support in your workplace, it makes it very challenging to see yourself and your achievement at your job in the light that you need to see it. So in predominantly white environments, the work culture is also built around whiteness. And of course, I have another story of someone just sharing with me just about, like, for example, working in an environment, and it's a predominantly white environment. And it was Black History Month. And the person wanted to have some type of celebration, acknowledgement, recognition for the month of February. And this person advocated for it, asked about it, and was told that the people working there there weren't that many Black people, so they didn't need to do it. That's an example right now, right there, because Black history is history. It's history. It's the history that's important for everyone to be aware of. It is not just for Black people, but that was an example. And so a lot of work environments are built around whiteness, and it makes it very challenging when you come in and you're in that type of environment that's built that way. Once again, feeling like you don't belong, and that your culture, how you present, how you look, how you speak, and how you act doesn't belong in that environment and doesn't match that environment. No matter how intelligent you are, capable, the abilities, the skills, the experience, as I stated earlier. So that's why those challenges in the workplace in connection to imposter syndrome. And so I wanted to give some specific examples with that. So the workplace. So because of the field that I'm in as a licensed therapist, and how Black mental health is, so mental health in general for anyone, I don't care what your race, your nationality, your ethnicity, however you identify, mental health is important. I will always stress that, right? And so, but I wanted to connect that what it looks like in the workplace. So I am a licensed therapist, and I am so overjoyed with the fact that we are overcomers, Black people. And so we are understanding that the importance of our mental health more than ever. And so I am very, very happy to help everyone, because I vow to support people with issues with their mental health and support for that. But now more and more of us are wanting to get support for our mental health, deal with our trauma. And so we want professional, right? If you're seeking out a therapist, you want professional people, but you want also someone, in a lot of cases, who will understand you from a cultural context, a racial standpoint. It could be, I want a woman because I want, some clients are like interested to see if someone's a mother, so they can understand if they come to them with issues related to parenting, they want someone that has an experience, even though the therapist is not in a session sharing that experience. You're the client, you have the power and authority to get what you want. So when I think about the workplace and I think about the disparities, I think about myself, and I read this. In 2015, 86% of psychologists in the US, and I'm not a psychologist, I always explain the different, in terms of healthcare and mental health care, there's different types of positions. Psychologist is one, but 86% of psychologists in the United States workforce were white, 5% were Asian, 5% Hispanic, 4% Black African American, and 1% multiracial. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of hone in, because we're today talking about the issues of Black African American people, that 4% of psychologists are African American. And so when you're coming into this field, and here's part two of that, and so the health service psychology workforce, 88% white, 12% racial ethnic minority. And that doesn't even say specifically Black. So and that 12%, it most likely is a small number, under 10%, right? And so ultimately, let's talk about the fact that I am in a field that I would be someone that was a perfect example of someone who would experience imposter syndrome because of statistics like this in the workplace. If I went to go work for an agency, a private practice, a hospital setting that offers mental health, right? Other Black psychologists making up such a small percentage in this field that was dominated by white people. The field of psychology that was created not with us in mind. The beginning of this not created for us at all. There is a great book called Even the Rat Was White. So think about in experiments, and they use animals, they use rats and other animals to do experiments, and saying that play on it. Like, even it's all about all the experiments. Everything is about in connection in relation to the standards to whiteness. So if white is the standard, even the rat was white. Even the lab rat was white. And it really, if you think about it, doesn't matter if you're doing a test on rats, if it's a black rat, a white rat, great, whatever. But just that whole idea of that, and that book covers kind of the start of psychology and just the racist undertone and background of it. So even in a field where it's not intended, then you would have, if there's 4%, so people coming into this field looking like me, not feeling like they belong here, feeling like, and no matter what work they do, how they touch their clients, how they understand racial trauma and help them work through it, still feeling like they don't belong in the field because the representation in the field, the representation is not there. So I wanted to show this as an example in connection to just being under the umbrella of psychology, under mental health, and just an example of the disparity and why people, and it's not someone can tell me, go be confident. I will, I am. But just ultimately, when you see this, you're like, well, I can't open my own private practice because no one's going to come to talk to me. No one's going to come talk to me. That could be the mindset when what you see, when your environment says so daily, it's daily messages. And the messages are not whispers. Those voices are like loud and raging because they're everywhere. So what actually causes imposter syndrome? And so as we stated, last week's topic was working while Black. So guess what we get this from, this imposter syndrome. And I'm not saying it's a sole reason. Working while Black, driving while Black, shopping while Black. The societal message is that we are the problem. We don't belong. We're not good enough. The message in the environment. So we're working, and so we have to think about the idea of how we show up at work. Are we going to get that promotion? What is that going to look like? What am I going to do? Did I say the wrong thing? I'm the only one. Will they relate to me? Constantly. Driving. Will they pull me over? If they pull me over and I don't say the right thing, have my hands in the right place, will I be alive to tell the story? I'm shopping in the store. I am in the store, and let's say it's high end. It could be any store. It doesn't have to be, but I'm giving this as an example. They're following me. They're watching me. Do I belong in this store? Or I walk into the store. Let's take it just a step like lower than that, and because this has been my experience, and they've said, "Hi, welcome to," you fill in the blank. "Hi, welcome to," because I heard them. And then when they got to me, I hear silence. So shopping while Black. Am I supposed to be here? Am I not good enough to shop? Am I not good enough for you to say hello to me? It feels uncomfortable. Do I want to shop here? When I didn't even receive a welcome. So these things, if you look at these things, if I say shopping, someone might go, "Oh, shopping." But if I add up, I'm driving, I'm working, I'm shopping, those societal messages, normal day-to-day things, working, things that you need to do, driving, shopping. So if I hear these messages daily, but I thought I was just intelligent, professional, accomplished, I work hard, when there's constantly messages saying, "No, you don't. You're not good enough." Imposter syndrome. You're a fraud. You're a fraud. You're a fraud. Those microaggressions, macroaggressions, right? Constantly in your workplace. Those big things, the macro, those big offenses, and then those microaggressions, those small, that death by 1,000 cuts, that's those slight, those things, that those little conversations, those brief exchanges that are so impactful and make you though question who you are. So how it shows up now, if I feel as though I am a fraud, and I feel as, and I go, let's say I go to my workplace and there is a promotion or position that I want to go for. But if I'm believing that I am a fraud, if I'm believing that I do not belong, if I look around and no one looks like me, if leadership, if all of the top positions, the position that I applied for or want to apply for, if every senior level person or every person in position doesn't look like me, and I may think, well, they're not going to hire me anyway. So it stifles the dream. It stifles the ambition. So if I believe that I'm a fraud and that other people know it too, I don't just feel it. I'm a fraud. They're not going to hire me. They're not going to give me that raise. Oh, they're not going to give me that promotion. Oh, they're never going to let me do that presentation. They're not going to let someone with an afro stand in front of the potential clients and give a presentation, even though I know myself. This is my area of expertise. I'm not gonna ask my supervisor, can I do it? They're not gonna allow me to do it. So it impacts how it shows up. You're stifled. You don't go for what you can go for, even though you have the ability to do it, because you don't believe you can do it. Negative self-talking, that goes hand in hand with it. Saying these things to yourself, no, I can't. I'm not good enough for it. They won't give me the chance. They're never going to give me the opportunity. And so that conversation, that constant conversation with yourself, that you're not speaking positivity into the situation at all. Self-sabotage. And when I think of the idea of self-sabotage is messing up, right? Kind of on purpose, because you don't believe that you deserve something or that you're good enough or that you should have it anyway. So you kind of mess it up. And so that self-sabotage happens. And this is how imposter syndrome is showing up. Constant self-doubt. And this here, perfectionism. That idea and that over concern with always being perfect. When you are a perfectionist, you can have so much anxiety of trying to meet this standard. And I believe in reaching for the stars. But when we think about imposter syndrome and think about the idea of feeling as though you're not good enough, you don't match up, you are constantly, and when you have perfectionism in relation to that, you're trying to get to this place. And so there's no cap and no limit. And so I read a term which I thought was so fitting. There's no internal thermometer, right? So there's this internal thermometer that like gives us a cap that tells us, you know what, you've worked real hard, you put work into this thing or whatever it is, you've done this, good job, you can take a break. If I'm trying to reach perfectionism because I feel like I don't belong, I'm not good enough, I am now going to have my internal thermometer may not work. So if I'm starting to feel burnt out, anxious, worried, I may not feel it because I'm pushing I got to get here. I can't even recognize that I've done all that I can do for now. I can't even recognize that I have worked so hard and what I've produced is amazing. So I don't have that internal thermometer. I can't even feel it. So I'm building up this, trying to be perfect and meet this standard that society has given me. And I'm not even recognizing that I can't do anymore. I'm not recognizing the level of anxiety. It's impacting my mental. It's now impacting my physical. I'm not even able to admit to imperfection, to making an error. We all make mistakes. Perfectionism is non-existent. But when you are trying to match or meet up with this standard that was set for you, and like I said, I believe you can achieve all things, and we have to remember that. But this standard, this unrealistic standard, you're not good enough. And even when you're more than good enough, we're all good enough, to be honest. And even when we're doing everything, the message is still like, nope, nope, Nope. And so that perfectionism can be dangerous because we're striving for something that we can't get to. It's like me saying, you know what? I'm going to go on a vacation, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my stuff together, and tomorrow I am going to walk to, you know, where I want to go. I want to go to the Dominican Republic, and I'm gonna do it by foot. I'm gonna get my water, get my bag, my clothes, pack. That's my vacation. I can't wait to get to the beach over there, but I'm gonna walk there. It's not achievable. It's unachievable. I can't. I could start walking in direction like I'm going there, but I'm not going to get there by foot. I'm not. I'm not going to walk there. It's not. It's not possible. So that's how perfectionism is. I'm constantly. So I could walk and keep walking day and night. I'm not walking to the Dominican Republic and arriving there by foot. I could walk with perfection. I'm going to get. I'm going to keep. I'm going to burn myself out. I'm going to keep. I'm going. But I'm going to keep doing it and not get there and burn myself and cause anxiety and cause a level of stress trying to get to a place that I don't even need to try to get to. There's other ways to achieve, to get what you want, to be great, but being perfect is not the route. But you got to think about what the message is. What's the environmental message? We have to keep that in mind. So when we think about conquering imposter syndrome, one of the very, very first things that I think about when I think about conquering this is this quote that I love, that I think is so fitting to the situation. Look at that beautiful flower. When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. Everyone listening to my voice, if you understand imposter syndrome, if you say, hey, that's me, I don't believe I'm good enough. I second guess and I have a lot of self doubt. I know I'm great at my position at work. I know I can get a promotion. I know what I can do. I know I have the experience, but I just feel like I'm not, like I'm going to be found out. Like, you know, that I'm not any of these things. Like I know I'm in this position, but they're not, no, they're going to find out that I'm a fraud. That I'm really not that. So we have to remember that we don't want to criticize. If this is you saying, this is how I feel sometimes. And I feel like that at work. And I had that experience. And I experienced microaggressions. I look at my workplace and I realize that these positions that no one looks like me. So I don't know that I'll get the opportunity, or I have the opportunity. I know I have to work 100 times harder to keep it. We have to be mindful that it's not about fixing us, that something's wrong with us. Even though we need to conquer it and we want to conquer it, the environment needs to be fixed. The workplace needs to be fixed. The community needs to be fixed. The systems need fixing. So if you're listening to me and this is your experience and you are great, which you're all great, even if this is not your experience, we're not going to point fingers and go, change, be better, do better, stop having imposter syndrome. We're going to say that what's needed is the environment being different. We need workplaces, we need environments that support the idea that representation matters, that understand intersectionality, that understand that discrimination is illegal and that in the workplace it should not be tolerated. That looking at someone and treating them a certain way because of what they look like, what their skin color is intolerable. So it's about our environment needs to change. So it is not looking at, oh, I think I do have a little bit of, I'm suffering a little bit from some imposter syndrome, and then kicking yourself like, why do I feel this way? Because a lot of times we discover what the issue is, and then instead of moving forward to figure out tools, we stop at kick ourselves stage. And we don't want that. We don't want to stop at kick myself. I can't believe I wasted time thinking like this, and I feel so bad. And we stay there. We stay in that place. And so then we deal with guilt. And then we have the worst other part of guilt. Guilt's best friend, cousin, shame. And we don't want that. We don't want that at all. And so ultimately, our environments need to be different. And so I want anyone going through or dealing with imposter syndrome, even though we're going to talk about some tools in a second, it's the environment, sis. It's the environment, brother. It's not you. And it means there's a problem with you. It's a problem with the environment. You should never go shopping and be followed. You should walk into a store and they say hello to you as well. You should walk into your workplace and there's resources and support for you, even if people don't look like you. You, because of your education, your skills, your talents, should be up for that same position like anyone else. And so the environment, the systems need changing. The flower can bloom when the environment supports the flower blooming. And so we don't want to make it about you're the problem. There are tools and strategies, there's ways, right? Because we have to be accountable for ourselves. We have to do our part, but it's very important that we understand that there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you, so don't forget that part. Step one, we're conquering, right? So we know it's the environment, right? There's things that work we have to do, but we got to seek out support. The support part is so important. We're going to seek out support. And what does support look like? For one, every single time I speak to everyone, I am always going to promote professional help. And so I, of course, am biased because I'm a counselor, I'm a therapist, and therapy works with the right therapist. The therapist that's trained for what issues and concerns that you have, and walking and talking this thing out, working on strategies, gaining tools, and to deal with how you see yourself. Having someone work with you to identify how you see yourself and how it impacts you in your day-to-day life. What messages you got growing up and what the impact of that is. And so seek out support. So I always say professional help. Now, this time, in addition to, since we've talked about, the impact in the workplace in terms of, in connection with imposter syndrome, you can also seek out the help of a career coach, right? Someone to help you identify, strategies and a direction for your career, and that encourages you, supports your journey in your career, that's going to pump their fist for you and say, keep going. Let's explore this route career-wise. How, exploring, giving you interest inventories and things that you can work on so that you can see that these are your skills. Look at how you filled this out. Look at what the results are. This really is your gift. These are your abilities, right? Someone to work through. So just for professionals like support, seeking to support out. Who supports you? I want everyone to know their support systems, and there's different types of support that we can get. So someone might say, oh, I don't need to talk to a therapist. My friend Jody, she gives good advice. Not the same thing, but kudos to Jody. Not the same thing. So we have to have different legs of support, and we have to have them in different areas. And support, one type of support is not all encompassing, right? When we think about just being surrounded, we have, by, a support system, we need different types. Okay, and so let's see. The next step, of course, when we're conquering imposter syndrome, and we talked about this last week, is that support network. And so when we talk about work, right? So if you're in a workplace and you're not getting the right support within the work environment, And I think it's so awesome to be able to build a network outside of that place. So check out your local chamber of commerce. They have African American chambers of commerce. They have local NAACP chapters. If you did not join a historically Black fraternity and sorority in your, during your college years, they have alumni chapters, alumni chapters that you can join. They're great resources. They support the community big time, and just the beauty of seeing other Black and African American men and women who are ambitious, who may go through some of the same struggles that you have, coming together in unity and serving the community and sharing resources. And it's a beautiful thing. And so building a support network outside of work, right? Work is so important. It's your livelihood. It does not define you though. It doesn't define you. So, it's really important to find that support outside. And that's the key word, support. Who is your support? Build a support network. If possible, finding other types of connections at work. Are there other people that you can connect to at work? Make different types of connections at work, because having support, having resources is just so important. And when we talk about imposter syndrome, just really that feeling where you just feel like you don't belong and you don't feel good. It's good to make connections, in that environment if you're able to. And it may not be the same type. Gave the example last week of just connecting with people, women that look like me in my prior position before I had a private practice, that we were not in the same role at work, but our commonality was culture, which was race. And so we were able to connect. We couldn't talk about work things specifically because we were not in the same role, but I found connection with them there. And I thought that was so important. So it's great to be able to, if we're both counselors at work, we can talk about, we can connect, we can talk about counseling. But it really is also great just to find other types of connections with people if you can at work. Practicing positive self-talk always is a way to conquer imposter syndrome. So this is a question I have for you. I want you to think about this. How do you talk to people that you love and care about? Think about people you love and care about. How do you talk to them? If your friend called you up, or if you have children and they were like, I'm a fraud, I'm not good enough, I'm not going to apply for that to that school or for that job or for that opportunity because I can't get that, right? That I might get through with my resume, but once I get to the interview, they're gonna realize, or even when I get the job, oh my gosh, if I got the job, like they're gonna realize that like I really don't belong there. So how do you talk to people that you love? So if your friend said that to you, what would you say in return? If you have a child, if your child spoke like that about themselves, how would you respond? So the next question is, when you think about how you talk to the people you love and the care, the comfort that you give them, ask yourself, do you love and care about yourself too? Are you someone, if you talk to the people that you love and care about with kindness, with compassion, why don't you talk to yourself that way? If you love and care for others and talk to them with a certain type of tone, with a certain type of support, I want you to ask yourself, do you love and care about yourself? And if you do, you need to offer the compassion and grace you offer to others. This self-compassion is so important. The grace and self-compassion that you give to others, you don't want your child, you don't want your mother, whomever, your loved one, your partner, to speak down on themselves, to think that they can't achieve, to feel like a fraud. So I don't want you to want that for yourself. So it doesn't solve the environment, as we talked about earlier, and the environment needs to change. Remember, it's not just about me telling you to go be confident. But what we talk to ourselves about, how we talk to ourselves is so important. It is so important. It is so important. You know, if we hear the same things, if you hear negativity all the time, you're going to speak that. If you are in a place where and we all struggle, and if we struggle with that and we know, that's how I'm going to go back to the 2 slides back. We need to get help, get the proper support. Everyone's situation is not easy where it's like, talk nice to yourself and do it. People are dealing with so much adversity and it's hard to do that. If you're recognizing that you are struggling that way, we don't want to be stuck and still in that. We don't want to be in that freeze mode where that's the place we want to live in. So I know there's adversity and positive self-talk. We might not be able to get there. We see so many challenges sometimes. We're like, what? How can I say anything nice? But if you baseline love yourself or want to love yourself or need to learn to love yourself, then we need to start at, let's get some support, talking to someone, processing, working through, understanding where those messages come from, how to do it, how to practice it. So I know, and if there are other things that you need, then we work on that too. I know, like I said, there's so much adversity, and it is not black and white. This is not a black and white situation, but these are just some tools, some things that we still can do, that we can still try and work through, and getting the proper support that we're needing if we're unable to do it, when we can't see past things in life, and we're like, how do I talk positive when all I see is negative? Then if you recognize that that's what you're doing, and that alone you can't change that, support, getting some support. Daily affirmations. I love the idea of affirming ourselves as much as we can. And so when we think about an affirmation, or to affirm just in general, it's stating something as a fact. So we want to believe it. So we do affirmations daily, because the more that we do it daily, we're stating it as a fact. It becomes fact. You believe it. You believe it. Think about when we hear those stories, or you watch a movie, or if it was your personal experience or someone you know, where someone said, when I grew up, someone told me I was stupid every day. And so I believed I was stupid, because they heard it all of the time. So it was affirmed and believed to be a fact. But what if it's the opposite? What if every day you said, I am confident, I am ambitious, I am hardworking, I am confident, I am ambitious, I am hardworking, I'm a high achiever, I'm a fast learner, I want to be, and fill in the blank. Every day, if we repeated that, even if we struggled day one to believe it was true, even if we're doubting it and not sure and say, I think I am, to affirm yourself, right? You're when you do it daily or on a regular basis, you are going, and strongly, right? Even if you don't believe it that first day, we want to do it with some strength. We want to do it so that we can believe it to be fact, so we can understand it to be fact, so we can walk in the light of that, of what that affirmation is. Acknowledge and celebrate. I want all of us to be able to sometimes slow down and pay attention. Sometimes we're moving so fast that slowing down helps us to pay attention to what we've accomplished. Taking time to note our accomplishments, and in all aspects of your life. And then that whole idea of accomplishment. And so it doesn't have to be this grandiose thing. It's those small wins. It's those things. You set the accomplishments. Society doesn't. Oftentimes, I'll have clients who are interested in, they say, I want to read more, but I can't get to, I can't. Every time I try to read, I get distracted, or I read and I start falling asleep. And I said, how many pages are you reading? So we start with small. We go, okay, I said, they're just reading. How about you start with, what's a number you want to start with? I don't want to give them a number. Okay. They say 10. Okay. Is 10 okay with you? You sure 10? No, maybe 5. Start with 5 pages every night until you build. And when you start reaching those 5K, you get to your five, I bet you're going to feel accomplished because you said it and you did it. Not because five is the largest number in the world. It's because you set out to do something and you did it. Operative word meaning you. So that for you can be an accomplishment. If you're like, when I get to work today, I'm going to clear out my inbox and I'm going to check these emails. And someone may be like, email? No, but if you set out today to do that and you did it, accomplishment. If you say, I'm going to take a class this semester, it's not the degree, but it may, I'm working full time, but I want to start with the class, and you take your class and you finish it that semester, accomplishment. If you're like, you know what, I am so tired at night and I'm waking up for work groggy and I just need to rest more because then my work production is better. And you start saying every night you create a night routine, you're in the bed 9:30, you sleep at 10, and you feel rested when you wake up to conquer your day, accomplishment. So we need to take time, slow down, and pay attention and stop looking for these big, gigantic boom, boom, and stop allowing the outside environment, and I know it's not a light switch, so I say stop, and I know it's not a light switch and off and on, like stop doing it and just do it. It's just the work. We work towards it every day, to slow down a little bit, to pay attention. Share your accomplishments with those who care about you. I love in my sessions, sometimes I love learning about my clients and building rapport with them. And when they tell me that they're not doing something or they're not good enough at something, and I'm able to sessions in go, so you're telling me you're not good enough or you don't do this. And I'm like, I pull out my paper and I'm like, so, but last month you said that you finished this, then you got this award at work, and they told me these accomplishments, but they didn't slow down enough to see that they're doing it. So the beauty of sharing is that when you're sharing it with people who care about you, and I care about them, I'm able to read back. So when they're telling me A, I'm like, no, B, you did B, and then there's some C in there, and then D. So sharing so that someone can be around to remind you is a part of that support network we talked about. So when you're not feeling it, understanding it, believing it, when you're sharing with people that care about you, they can tell you, oh, you're saying that you're this? No, how are you this when this is who you are? And they just can remind you of that. So you don't have to be perfect. No perfection. It is okay to make mistakes. It's how we grow and learn. And so when we think about being in competition, we're only our own standard. And we want to just do our best to look at what we've done, and like if we read that 5 pages, keep reading it till you solidify that number, you feel comfortable, bump up to 6, go to 10, whatever works for you. But trying to achieve perfection to meet a standard that people put in place for us that sometimes feels impossible will breed a level of anxiety that is not necessary and not healthy for you. And in order for us to conquer imposter syndrome, we have to be healthy, not only physically, but mentally, healthy emotionally, being able to express ourselves, set appropriate boundaries for ourselves. I don't have it here, but I say it every week, practice the utmost self-care, taking care of yourself, because we do go out there, go into the workplace, go into the stores, and feel sometimes beat down by what's dished out to us. And so ultimately, don't seek out this perfection. We can conquer feeling like an imposter by just walking in really who we are, right? And just affirming that every single day. And this is what I think is just so important, is if we look at us, we face this constant discrimination due to our race. And so, I talked earlier about intersectionality due to not only race, but then being a woman, being a Black woman, and dealing with everything that goes along with that. There's so much nuance. But look at what we have achieved. I want you to really, if we pay attention to the adversity that our people have faced and what they have achieved, it is such a reminder to keep going. to really look at yourself for who you are and not let the world set the standards for you. And so I thought I have a few, because I am a business owner, I had a few stats that were inspiring to me. So we can look back in history, but I thought of just these Black owned business statistics. And this is just a few to share to show you what can be done. There are more than 2 million Black owned businesses in the United States. Black owned business generated 150.2 billion in gross revenue just as recently as 2012. The most popular category for Black owned business is healthcare. Washington, D.C. has the highest percentage of Black owned businesses. 70% of Black business owners are happy with their business. 35% of Black business owners are women. New York has the greatest number of Black owned businesses in the country. So just when I hear these things and I hear Black and achievement and Black owned businesses employ approximately 920,000 people. So when I read my stats earlier, and of course there are things that go along with that, where there are disparities, there are numbers and things could be higher. But when I read the statistics earlier about 4% in psychologists, their, makeup, the makeup for psychologists, Black psychologists are 4%. But then I read this, I realize our power and what we're able to do. And that we can be, you are who you say you are, not what's defined by our environment. And it's so important. So I just wanted to read a few of those numbers just to inspire and just have us stop for a second. Remember slowing down to look at what we achieved. We can look up, just the history of our people and what we have achieved and what we are able to do to help us in the process of conquering imposter syndrome. So here it is time for our reflection activity. And so what we're going to do today, we're going to do some affirmations and accomplishments. And an affirmation, this statement that you believe to be true, as we said earlier, I want you to create, you can get your journal, you can put this on poster board. I want you to create 5 affirmations, and maybe the journal won't work this time because I want you to put them where you can see them. And if they're in a journal, I want it to be a journal you write in, that you open up, that you look at. And I want you to see them daily, and I want you to repeat them daily, because remember that repetition is important, because we want to be affirmed, and we want to affirm ourselves. So we can start off with, you write your 5, I am. I am. Not something that you think someone thinks you are, or someone has told you with this. What are you? What are you? Really exploring and thinking about, I am. What are you? I am accomplished. I am hardworking. I am ambitious. I am intelligent. I am funny. I am supportive. I am empathetic. I am, and just keep and fill it. And I said 5, keep going. Things that you believe, to be true, and repeat them daily. Have them visual. Have them where you can see them. Put them on the nightstand. Put them up so that you can read it and know who you are. And then the next part is the accomplishments part. So I want you to make a list of all the accomplishments that you have. And it doesn't matter how big or how small. We talked about that. It is not, everyone's not, saying, oh, I went to school and I got this degree or I had this promotion. We have to look at accomplishments as daily, just things that we did that we set out to do. I think that part is so important. You set out what it is. And when you do what you said you're going to do, that is an accomplishment. So whatever that may be. And so it's big or small. It could be at work or any other environment that you choose it to be. I want you also to put this list up so that you can see it and add to the list each time you accomplish something. Add to it. Read it back to yourself. Because remember, you set that standard. No one set it for you. So I want everyone to do that, to practice it. It doesn't, remember, we are not sugarcoating and making it as if like this solves all the problems, but we want to work to conquer, and it's work. It's daily work. And we know that environment needs to change. but these are things that we can do in the process of things changing around us, the hope that it changes around us, that there are things that we can do to uplift ourselves. So we are at the end of our time here together. And I thank you for listening today as I discuss imposter syndrome and how to conquer it. And as always, take care of yourself. So important. Take care of each other and make sure that you are well. So be well, take care of yourself, take care of others. Bye bye.